this to here. All right. Hey, folks at Tuscon. I'm here with one of our new old friends. We're going to talk about whatever comes up. We're going to start with a little Monty Python because who doesn't love Monty Python? So, what is your name?
My name is Chaz Kemp.
What is your quest?
Ooh, my quest is to be the most well-known illustrator of fantasy sci-fi, steampunk, and cyberpunk in Western and Eastern civilization.
Wow. All right. Don't even small.
Well, if you're gonna swing, swing for the fences.
Swing for it. That's right. And what is your favorite color?
Green.
Green.
Green, yeah. Although I do have a fondness for purple also.
There's a lot of purple on that Cthulhu picture I bought from you.
So there is.
What draws you?
There is. To the Cthulhu type pictures or to the colors in
the
general?
Colors. Green,
to the colors, I don't know. I think well, green, I just like green. I just like the way it makes me feel. It's like going outside and being like, when I was in Ireland and just seeing just tons and tons of green, and when I used to live in Seattle and saw the green trees and things like that, to me it makes me feel really good. When I'm inside, I really enjoy green, especially like when you go to like a really cool coffee house and it's kind of got a really nice forest green kind of and with tan trim, and you're sitting there with your coffee with your friends and you're talking about really cool awesome stuff. It's just a really, I don't know, it's a very serene color for me. It makes me feel a lot more intelligent than I am, so that's probably why I like it.
Excellent. So how's COVID been treating you?
Pretty crappy, much like everyone else. We're pretty stir crazy. Haven't gotten COVID, so fingers crossed. Hope you guys haven't either. But just seeing what it's doing to everyone is really, really difficult. I mean, aside from the virus itself, you've got ways to fight the virus by wearing your mask, which I personally would encourage everyone to do. And you also look out and see how it's affecting people. You've got people who are like, staying inside and not really talking to other people and not really getting close to anyone, and that kind of thing. You've got people who are really, really terrified of it, and with good reason. But you've also got people who are like, I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm going to go out and live my life like I normally do. And, I don't care if I endanger other people. And then they get sick. And then they're like, oh, maybe I should have taken this seriously. But in addition to that, they've also infected other people. So it really kind of, it's one big social observation in just watching what a global pandemic does to people on a psychological level.
Yeah.
And your mileage may vary, but the results are interesting, not necessarily always good.
Yeah, not necessarily always good. So what projects have you been up to lately?
Let's see. I've been doing art directing for Evil Beagle Games. That was a fairly recent thing. Working on some tabletop role-playing game gigs and stuff for people. Just finished a couple of book covers for David Lee Summers, his Dragon's Fall series. So I did the first two covers for that series. They're basically about vampires, and really, really cool. Never did a book cover for a vampire before, for vampire genre before. So that's been really, really fun. Yeah, and yeah, just kind of doing posters for conventions for 2021 when we get to it. And yeah, just generally having a good time, trying to I don't know, spending a lot more time with my wife, and trying to keep from driving each other crazy, since we're both in the house all the time now. So, that's a challenge. But yeah, still trying to find ways to communicate with my friends and family, and yeah, just doing a lot of that really, and you know, relying a lot more on social media than I normally do.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, as far as the art goes, doing that bit, I also started really quick. I also started doing just kind of working and playing around with watercolor.
Ooh.
And so I had started doing that bit and taking kind of personal commissions for people that wanted their, tabletop role playing game characters and family portraits and whatever, stuff like that done in watercolor. So I had been taking a lot of assignments with that and doing personal commissions and stuff, and that's been a blast. That's been a real blast. So it was just, I tried something different, and I was like, well, let's just, let me try this out and see what people think, and people really grooved on it. So I was pretty
Watercolor,
happy.
watercolor
Hmm?
is really different. I know one of our other regulars, Talia, like started experimenting with watercolors a few years ago, and it really opened up a lot of avenues for her. How is it different on the painting level to be thinking in watercolor versus whatever you were painting before, or you were mostly pen and ink though?
Actually, I've been pen and ink for most of my life,
Yeah.
and then I started learning how to do everything digitally. I went to Art Institute and really perfected that method. And so, as soon as I went freelance, I basically did everything from the computer. I use Corel Draw, so it's a vector-based program, and I was using that and basically making a lot of my painting in Corel Draw look kind of watercolor esque,
Mm.
not truly watercolor, but my shading, my painting and stuff kind of has that feel to it.
Yeah.
So when I went and decided to just go full on watercolor, the difference for me anyway is that there's no real line work. So I've taken all of that out, because my regular work is there's a lot of line work, which I love, and which is where my background with the pen and ink came from. Doing the pure watercolor, there's no line work, and I do it all in Photoshop. So I've had to learn how to use Photoshop and everything like that, and that's been a learning curve, and it's been different, but also fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a good time. It's been a learning experience for sure.
I always think trying the new things, right? That's where the awesome comes from, and across the board.
Yeah, yeah. I was getting a little bit burnt out, and just drawing and just doing gig after gig. And so when I started doing the watercolor, it was like, oh, I'm learning something new. I'm trying something new. The art looks really different. And so now that kind of opens up different avenues of, stuff I could do, because it's a little bit faster and I don't have to be as precise. It makes me feel a lot freer. So I was doing a lot more like, say, architecture, for example, and landscapes, which I normally hate drawing with a passion, with like a flaming passion.
Yeah.
But with watercolor, I don't have to be precise. So
Just
I can just give
oh,
the impression of detail,
yeah.
and it works and people love it. And it's like, oh, great. Kind of a weird shortcut. Just switch genres. So yeah, it's been really interesting. So now I've had to, kind of look more at how to do trees and mountains and buildings, and then I said, okay, well, how about I do some ancient temples and magical towers and various things like that, and that's been really kind of fun to just kind of go, all right, I'm really going to go off on this. This is going to be cool. So
Cool.
yeah,
Mhm. So you've done some covers from one of our old timers, David Lee Summers.
yeah.
um,
Yeah, David's cool. He's a really, really cool guy. We've become friends while doing his covers and stuff, and he's a really just good person. I really like him a lot. He's cool.
yeah, we love having Dave around. So with that and some of your Ren Fair time with the music, you've fallen into that convention-esque collaboration a lot. And I don't know if the normal folks who attend cons understand that there's this whole thing going on in the pro community. Can you talk a little about how con collaborations spawn and what's it like for the pros and when you're getting together at the convention?
It's pretty cool actually. you end up talking with a lot of people that you really admire. And it's weird because it's like, I'm older, I'm not like a 20 something anymore, but a lot of the pros that have been in the business for a really long time, the illustrators, the authors and stuff like that, they see me as like this up and coming guy. And so it's kind of cool to kind of, I've been freelance for like 10 years, but my name is starting to kind of get out there. And people are like, yeah, I think I've heard of you. Yeah, yeah. You're one of those new guys. And it's like, "Huh, okay. I guess I'll hide the gray in my beard and stuff and, just kind of do that. But it's really neat though, to be able to talk with a lot of the people that I have admired for years. People like Elizabeth Leggett, like Liz Danforth, and just people like that. Where Tawny Fritz, people that I've admired for a really long time, and then getting to finally getting to meet them at conventions, doing panels with them, and then you get to talk with them afterwards and hang out with them and go out to dinner and stuff like that. And you'd think that all we'd be talking about is, art, 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 or, writing and writing and art and writing and art and writing and writing and writing and art, art, art. That's what you think, but we don't. We talk about everything else. We almost talk about anything else,
Yeah.
you know? So it's really cool. I've gotten a lot of advice from Elizabeth Leggett. She's been really helpful to me in my career. But then on the other side, I've gone to, we've driven, to New Mexico to support her when she had a big gallery opening where she did uh, she did a big gallery opening. I forget the author with whom she did a whole bunch of really amazing paintings of. It just kind of it eludes me right now, but it was really neat just to go down there and support her, and then just to hang out with people and be able to hopefully support them and just become friends basically. So it's been really neat. It's been really neat because everybody, they're just people.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
it's kind of cool. We do the con circuit and we do a lot of conventions, and it's just I personally, I love doing conventions. So to me, it's not really a hassle or anything like that. And I love meeting fans, but then when you get to talk to professionals, then you start, if you're talking about art, then you kind of start getting into a little bit more of the nitty gritty of, what do you think of this piece? Well, I think you could do this, or maybe do that, or try this, or try that. They give you ideas in order to kind of make you better, and then you do the same for them. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah, that's definitely something I enjoy, is being involved in Tuscon, is these projects like you working with Dave, and like the movies that have happened that spawn from conventions in general, our convention in particular. I love seeing these two people that we put together purely on accident, just because their tables were near each other in the dealer's room, have created a thing together.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun, because there's a lot of times too when somebody will come by the table and there's a kind of a big time author, and they'll come by and go, hey, I'm working on this other project, I'd love for you to do a cover for me and stuff, and it'd be, then you start to kind of get to know them even better. So it's just, I don't know, and the gentleman that came by with the movie that one time, and that was really cool and fun, and it's just, I don't know, it's kind of like a whole nother world with other creatives that are doing really fun, amazing stuff that, if you're lucky, you get to be a part of. But even if you don't, you could still talk with them and admire it and say, and be a fan, you know? So that part to me is just, it's always cool because there's always someone I can fanboy over, you know? It's like I could be artist guest of honor one year and then come back the next year and have a booth and then be a fan of someone else.
Yeah.
So,
Who surprised you by becoming a fanboy of you? Anybody's come up and you're like,
um, let's see. I don't know that I'd necessarily call it a fanboy per se. Um, but to have Liz Danforth come by the table, look at my art and go, wow, I really like what you're doing. Oh my God, this stuff is really cool. And she was going through all my stuff, commenting on it, was a dream come true, really. Um, that was, Jonathan Mayberry too kind of came by and looked at my stuff and thought it was really great. But Liz Danforth, I have been a fan of hers since I was 17, 18 years old. She used to, do illustrations for Tunnels and Trolls, stuff like that. She's done a lot of tabletop role playing game stuff. And I used to love her art. She was one of the reasons why I really wanted to become a professional illustrator. And when she came by and looked at my stuff, it was like, wow, it was such a huge compliment. And then later on, I mean, to support her Patreon and stuff like that, which is great. And then to have her say, hey, whenever you're in town, just give me a call and we'll hang out. We'll do lunch. I'm like, oh my God, really? Wow.
Uh,
It's amazing,
yes.
So yeah, it's neat. It's really, really neat. And the cool thing about it, and I'm rambling now, I'm sorry, but the
That's what we're
cool
here for.
thing about all of this stuff is that if you are a fan of an illustrator or an author, especially at a convention, they we are a lot more approachable than say an A-list celebrity like Chris Hemsworth. If he shows up at your convention, you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to just walk up to his booth and just hang out and talk with him for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
There's no way, you know. But if you see Jonathan Mayberry and he happens to be at his booth and there's nobody else there, you could actually have a conversation with him. He's actually just a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Same thing with Jim Butcher, same thing with Liz Danforth or Elizabeth Leggett and all those guys. It's like they're just really, really nice people. So yeah, it's a lot. It feels a lot more real. It feels more real.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because with Liz, right? Because Liz was a guest actually before I started working on TusCon. And of course, she's a fantastic lady. And as an old gamer, I've probably been a fan of hers for about as long as you have. And then to actually meet her, it was like, oh, you did that art and that art. But then there's the steps as Scott and I started doing the programming. And then, like, I do remember the first time Liz said something nice about our panel ideas. And it was like, oh, Liz thinks our panels are cool. So, yeah, I'm so totally with you on Liz likes me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because it's just and I think, to be honest, I think the thing with all of that is, you know, they I don't think she really realized how much of an influence that she was to people, especially, younger artists and just people that just loved gaming, and they would look at her illustrations and stuff, and it was just like, man, when I first moved to Colorado when I was 17, um I loved D&D. I actually got a chance to play a couple of times in high school and I was hooked. And then we moved to Colorado and there's nobody to game with, So I went to the local gaming shop and I looked at all the books and everything like that. I was like, oh, I really want to buy this stuff, but I got nobody to game with. So I decided I was going to buy, it's like Tunnels and Trolls, you could play solitaire. And I was like, oh, I could play by myself. Okay, cool. I'll do that. And so I got the first book and I must have run through that initial adventure 7 to 10 times. And her art was all throughout all of that stuff. And so I'm looking at her art constantly. And it was so it was to say it was visual, I guess is redundant, but it really brought me into that world. And so the first time I got to meet her and Michael Stackpole, it was my birthday. It was at Mile High Con here in Denver, and I wasn't a professional at the time or anything like that, and I got invited to this big guest of honor party. I don't know how. I don't know how I got invited because I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
But I'm walking around and stuff, just hanging out, and somebody was like, "Hey, you look cool. You want to go to this really cool dinner party?" And I was like, sure." So I get there and boom, I'm sitting on one side of me is Michael Stackpole and the other side is Liz Danforth. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You guys wrote Tunnels and Trolls. Oh man, I'm playing this like all the time. They're like, oh, right on, cool, thanks. And then everybody's having these conversations. I'm just sitting there going, "Oh my god, happy birthday to me!" You know, it was awesome. It
That's
was
a pretty
really
awesome
awesome.
birthday present.
It was.
Yeah.
It was, and that's actually the thing that kinda got me hooked on going to conventions. It was such a fantastic experience. Everybody was just so nice that I was just like, "Man, I gotta go to more of these things," you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, it was kind of mine too. My first Tuscan, I picked up some buttons at the freebie table, and I went to the smoking consuite. Right, this is a long time ago, back when you could still smoke in a building in America.
Hmm.
And there's a guy sitting there, and he looks at the buttons on my jacket and he says, "Oh, you've got good taste." I'm like, "Let me guess, you're the author." He says, "Yeah." Sit down. And 2 hours, half a pack of smokes later, I'm hooked. Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
As Adam Niswander, great guy. Unfortunately, no longer on this side of the mortal coil, but
Mm.
yeah, uh, yeah, we had a great relationship all the way through. He always would look me up every year for Tuscan. I wander through the desk, and then Adam's looking for it. He goes, "Oh, Adam's here." All right, go troop out, find Adam, hang out for an hour or so. And yeah,
Nice.
all that welcoming stuff. And of course,
Yeah.
when I met Simon Hawke, you know, because he was one of my favorite writers, and he was a regular at Tuscan at the time. So you're Simon.
Nice. Yeah. That reminds me of that weekend too, I also got to meet Stephen Brust. He had written The Phoenix Guard and 500 Years After, and that whole series of books and stuff after that, Taltos and all of that. But so I'm a huge Three Musketeers fan, and so when I picked up The Phoenix Guard, I read that and I was like, oh my god, this is the coolest book ever. And then that year at Mile High Con, he was one of the guests, and I wandered into a room where everyone was basically doing where they were just everybody was singing, and it was just it was a bardic circle, so everybody around the circle got to sing a little something or play their instrument or whatever. And so I'm just sitting there just enjoying everybody. Emma Bull is there, and there's some other authors and artists and stuff, but all I knew was like, oh my god, that's Stephen Brust. um and it got to me, and I sang a song, and people were like, oh, hey, he can sing, oh, that's cool, okay, great. And then it just keeps going around. And the next day I find Stephen Brust after a panel, and I go up to him and I say, hey, yesterday was my birthday. I sat in on the Bardic Circle. It was fantastic. It was wonderful. I read your book. It's one of my favorite books right now, of like, that I've ever read. I love it. Could you please sign it for me? And he's like, yeah, sure. And he signed it with something like, hey, Chaz, great singing last night. Look forward to hearing more from you, Stephen Brust, kind of thing. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So then I met him two other times after that. He didn't remember who I was.
Yeah, that's the problem. But,
Yeah, but I have met him consequently since then. And the latest time was in 2018 when we were both guests of honor at Mile High Con, and he and I did a panel where we got to drum together, like
Oh,
play Doombeck and stuff together and everything. Then that was really fun. So now I'm fairly certain he's going to remember me next
you
time.
remember who you are.
Yes.
All right.
Hopefully. If he doesn't, that's okay. If he watches this, it's okay, Steven. No worries, man. If you don't remember me, that's fine. I will remind you.
All right, so there's a dangling thread there. You're a Three Musketeers fan.
Yes.
Which is your favorite Musketeer? And which is your favorite adaptation or spin-off?
Ooh, that is a good question. No one's ever asked me that before. I think when I was younger, my favorite Musketeer was D'Artagnan, because I could relate to him because he was coming in and learning the world of the Musketeers brand new. And I always imagined that if ever I could be a musketeer, that would kind of be the way that I would do it. I was always the young kid, being introduced to some brand new world of some sort. Not always a good thing, depending on the world that you're introduced to. That's a whole nother panel and a whole nother story. But that's the character I related to the most. Um, I think now, I think I probably really connect a lot more with Aramis, because Aramis was very focused and he had a lot of belief. Now, his belief was in, God and Christianity and that sort of thing. I am not. I am more of an agnostic, I suppose. I'm very spiritual, not necessarily religious, but I believe in myself. I believe in art. I believe in love. So in that regard, that's who I kind of relate to a lot more these days. My favorite adaptation of the Three Musketeers. There are so many.
I know.
Um, I have to say I like a lot of the more recent ones. One that I watched had Orlando Bloom as the Duke of Buckingham, and some other really big name actors who I can't remember right now. That was a really good adaptation where they had airships and stuff like that, and that was really pretty badass. Airships with Gatling guns. Like, oh yeah. So all of my steampunk, bells were going off for that one, so I really loved it. I think that was a good movie. Didn't get very good reviews, but I think it's just because you can only redo that story so many times before after a while you're just like, we've seen this already.
Yeah.
But I think my favorite. Well, I've got two for different reasons. One of them is the Three Musketeers from the '70s with Michael York and um, Oliver Reed and all of those guys, Richard Chamberlain, and that's a classic.
Michael York
And
around. So.
yeah, yeah, Vincent Price's Cardinal Richelieu. So that was really fun. I really loved that one a lot. Loved the sword choreography is just to die for. If you're into that sort of thing, if you love choreography, stage fighting, sword choreography of that nature, it's probably one of the best films you could watch. Because I took stage combat for a long time when I did theater and everything like that, and that's the movie I watched. I watched that like every year if I could, just to pick up some new techniques and stuff. Um, and then before that, there was a Three Musketeers movie where Gene Kelly played D'Artagnan, and you know he was awesome, and I mean awesome. I mean, now here's the thing: in the '40s, all of that stuff, the Three Musketeers, Zorro, Robin Hood, those guys are all very flamboyant and theatrical, and way over the top, and that kind of thing, and ultimately very cheesy. However, the sword fighting and the stuff that Gene Kelly did during the initial D'Artagnan fight was amazing. Amazing. He's so athletic and he did flips and he jumped all over the place and he was very acrobatic. And the sword fighting was perfect. Just it was amazing. He was just flipping amazing. So if you guys haven't seen it, it's really, really well done.
Kelly made a Three Musketeers movie. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't aware.
Yeah.
Angela.
Yeah, Angela Lansbury as as the Lady de Winter. Kind of wild. Kind of wild. So yeah, check it out. If you haven't had the chance, check it out. It's worth at least watching once.
Okay. Cool. Let me think. Let's pick up on threads. So sword fighting choreography, you've done that in this for stage.
Mm-hmm.
You've been Ren Fair stuff. So have you done any of the stick banging?
No. Not well. No, that's not true. I have actually. I had a stage show for a couple of years where we did have a lot of stage choreography and fight choreography and stuff like that, and that was really fun. That was really fun. Had to have a big stage and everything like that, but that was good. I had one fight scene where the guy basically he was supposed to throw me, and the way that he was supposed to throw me was, I lunge, he ducks, grabs my arm, and pulls me over his back.
Wow.
And the choreography for it is he grabs my arm and then I push myself and do basically a forward roll over his back.
Right.
And the reason I do it is so that I have control. you know. However, there was one show where he got really excited. We had a big crowd, and he held on to me too long, so he actually ended up actually throwing me, and my head missed a nail that was sticking up out of the stage by like that much.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was very interesting. We had to have a conversation after that. So yeah, so I have done it, and I have taken fencing and stuff like that. So I used to love all of that stuff, man.
Yeah.
Really groove on it.
So in the choreography,
Hmm.
I've done a little bit of stick banging with the SCA crowd, because I know
Cool.
in the sword fighting world, especially when you're doing theatrical or movie, there's like the moves that look hard and are great to put in a movie but actually aren't, and then there's the moves that actual sword fighters will look at and go ooh, but normal folks wouldn't be impressed. Did you mix those up when you were doing choreography? Put something in there for the actual sword fighters?
No. Because I think one of the things that you realize is that when you actually do fencing, for example, um, it's a lot of subtle movement, and it's very, very fast.
Yeah.
It's faster than the eye can actually follow most of the time. Um, and it's not very theatrical. It's not necessarily amazing to watch
Yeah.
unless you are a fencer and you know what you're looking for. Um, but a lot of times, a move is like bam, bam, and that's it. It's done, and you're like, oh, what happened?
Yeah.
So that stuff like that doesn't really actually translate to the stage. Um, so when you're doing stage choreography, well, your moves have to be a lot bigger. When you do a side swipe, you're having to bring the sword up here, and then you flip your wrist and you do that bit, and you're following through a lot more, and you've got a wider stance, and you're making yourself very, very visual,
Yeah.
which is kind of the opposite of real sword fighting.
Right.
In real sword fighting, you don't want to be a big, huge target.
Yeah.
You want to be as small a target as you can be. Um, so, and your moves aren't as fast.
Yeah.
You can make them fairly fast, but not so fast that the other person can't parry when he has to. So it's very, very, very different. You're going for stuff that looks cool and flashy and amazing, and people, so that's visually exciting.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
So
can't really mix it up overly much, otherwise you
Yeah.
lose half the move, and the moves, and the audience doesn't really see it. So
I suppose probably that's more movie where you get to like do the small moves because you get to have extreme close-ups.
right, exactly. And the other thing with a movie too is that you only really have to remember parts of the choreography at the time
Right.
at a time. So it's like, let's do, this, and this. Okay, great. And then the director yells cut, and then they move the camera, and then you're doing other stuff. And it's like it's cool, and then you're like, okay, hold the sword there. Let's get a close up here, and then okay, now do that move, but now the camera's going to be right up close to your face, kind of thing, or whatever. So it's a little bit different. I enjoy watching stage combat in theater because you get to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
And not only do you get to marvel at how cool the moves are, but the fact that they had to memorize all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Really that's pretty impressive. That's pretty cool. So I enjoy that a lot more.
Hopefully you get to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
Remembering one rendition of Hamlet. Yeah, it was Hamlet that we got to watch in high school, where it was a stage play that was filmed, but yeah, they went like behind the scenery and banged tin plates for a while, and that was like, oh, that's sad.
No, that's a drag.
Yeah,
that's really a drag.
Why are you making us watch this? So has the knowledge of that choreography informed your art when you do a lot of the medieval people with swords in your in your art?
Yeah, sometimes I think, to be honest, it doesn't really necessarily inform the art as much as it elevates my enjoyment for doing those kinds of illustrations. I'm obviously going to have people, holding their weapons correctly and that kind of thing, of course. But it just heightens my enjoyment. It's like, oh, I get to draw this now. Oh, that's great. And I get to imagine the action that led up to the point and then the action that's happening afterwards, and I'm just drawing a moment in time.
Yeah,
So it's fun.
the,
It's really
maybe the
fun.
single frame.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's an interesting process in art. Because a lot of artists aren't so good at that, but you certainly are. I always think that the master of that is probably Frank Frazetta.
Hmm.
He could do the single frame, and you could see the last hour of the story in it.
Right. Right. That's a process that I've had to learn just in the last year and a half. Um, I think, I look back at my art now and there are pieces that I really love. And now I know why I love them. And now I know why there are certain pieces that sell better than others. Um, and now with my art, I'm a lot more conscious of having to draw the scene, even if it's a single frame and a single character. You have to tell the story. And that was something that I had to learn pretty recently, because I've heard that phrase before, but I didn't really actually know what it meant. And then I had an art director really kind of sit down and actually, talk to me. Her name's Zoe Robinson. Elizabeth Leggett introduced me to her. She's very cool. Um, but Zoe basically taught me about how to um, how to tell a story from a single scene, from a single picture. And so, now that's kind of what I look for and what I try to do in my art. And hopefully as time goes on, I will get better and better at it. But ultimately that's really what you want. And Frank Frazetta did it. And people have analyzed that kind of style and everything like that. And they look at it and now I see his stuff, oddly enough, and I go, oh, that's what she meant. Oh, okay, great. I get it now. I see it.
That's why that one
So
chainmail link is broken. Yes.
yeah, exactly, because it's like when you see them and they're bleeding and they're holding their sword kind of low, and there's the monster, and the monster's got some cuts on him and stuff, and the monster's about to attack again, and the guy's got his axe down there and he's looking up, and you could just tell it's like, oh man, this guy is tired. He's really tired. This could be it for him,
Yeah.
you know? But it's all encapsulated in that one scene.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's why he's brilliant,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's telling that how much work Milo, oh, I can't remember who directed the first Conan movie, put into, right? Because he picked those handful of Conan paintings and he was like, and we're going to make this happen and this happen and this happen. And you can smell all those scenes coming. There's a good 5 minutes of setup to be able to hit the frame that
right.
Frazetta painted all at once.
Right. But again, without really realizing it, you've hit the name, not you've obviously realized it, but just as a viewer of the movie, we don't realize what we're watching and why we love it so much, but that's why.
Yeah.
He picks certain paintings and he says, okay, I'm going to create the scene and this is going to be the scene within the scene kind of thing. This is going to tell the story a lot more than any kind of dialogue, because I don't know that Arnold necessarily was very good at delivering dialogue during that time.
Yeah. He hadn't done much.
So it was kind of neat to have a movie where they just basically said, well, he doesn't need to say much.
Yeah.
We just have his bulging muscles and he's doing his kata and then he's got the sword out and then everybody's like, ooh, that's Conan, It's like, oh, that's awesome, man. That's pretty awesome. So yeah, pretty brilliant. Dino Laurentiis, right? Was that the director?
Produced it, but the director.
Mm.
All right, we got the Googles.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't actually
If
claim to have
if only we
identified.
had the world's greatest library at our
Oh,
fingertips.
John Milius. There we go. John
Okay.
Milius directed it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't claim
Cool.
credit for actually having spotted the paintings during the movie. DVD extras. Milius explained all that. So this is the
Oh,
movie.
right on. Right on.
Watch the DVD extras. You can talk like you actually know things.
Nice. Now, Frank Frazetta, Boris Vallejo, all those guys, man, those guys are legendary for a reason,
Yeah.
you know. And that was a lot of it. I mean, yeah, people, I think in school we all focused on how they painted and their technique,
Yeah.
but we didn't focus on what was it that made them great.
Yeah.
You know, what is it? Why has everyone heard of this guy?
Yeah.
You know? So
There's
yeah.
the technique behind the technique, which I don't know if art schools even know how to teach that, right?
Some do, of course,
Yeah.
some do. But yeah, art school for me was a bit of a waste of time in a lot of ways. A waste of time and a waste of a huge amount of money. And mostly everything that I've learned that I've used in my career, actually 99.9% of the things that I've learned and used in my career had nothing to do with art school. It was everything that I learned after I left art school.
Yeah.
So yeah, not to bag on people that go to art school or anything like that. Just that when I went, I didn't really get a whole lot out of it. So that was a bit of a drag.
Yeah, everybody's experience is different. It's where you're at, where the school's at. What do you need to learn versus what are they ready to teach, right?
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Well, there was a great Frazetta documentary that came out. Oh, let's not think about how long ago. But he actually talked a little bit about, that extra layer, the mindset that he would have to think about, write the story that led to the picture that he's doing.
Yeah, that's brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, I should watch that because I didn't realize that he even had a documentary. That's cool.
Yeah, it's really good.
Excuse me while I avail myself of the world's greatest library.
Yes, the internet queue.
It's called Painting with Fire.
Yes, that is it. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I highly recommend that to anyone. Really anyone. If you like Frazetta, you gotta watch it. If you don't like Frazetta, well, what's
you gotta
wrong
watch
with
it.
Go watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently that came out in 2003. So
yeah.
Yeah, but they did talk about that a little bit there on Amazon. There was a documentary about the artists of Dungeons and Dragons in the early days.
Ooh.
And there was a documentary about that. And that was really fascinating, actually, because they talked about their illustrations and having to tell the story because they wanted to draw people into the adventure. So when somebody was describing, hey, here's a you can play a paladin, and then one of those guys would draw a paladin, and it would be like, oh my god, or paint a paladin or whatever, and it was like, oh man, yeah, I want to play that. That guy looks cool. And there was definitely some strategy
because of the guy crawling on the head of the statue to steal the gem during the ceremony on Player's Handbook. Yeah, I think that's the Player's Handbook. Yeah, I think all of us were like, I want to be that guy.
Yeah, exactly. I think that artist was Errol Otis, I think it was. And then after that there was Larry Elmore, who did a lot of art for Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
I got to meet him briefly. Seemed like a really, really nice guy. I got to tell him how much of an influence he was to my art and about me becoming an artist and everything. And pretty nice guy. I saw him at Dragon Con, I think it was. Very cool. So yeah.
That is what makes it great. All right. Um, so how's the guild doing? You guys running sales? Holiday seasons are coming.
We're doing a few sales here and there over the weekend, and that's the Convention Artist Guild.
Say that again
But
slowly in your Emmy Award-winning narrator voice, and I'll try to get Frank to put it on the screen.
the Convention Artist Guild.
All right.
I enunciated in everything. Yeah, we're. I think we're kind of on a bit of hiatus right now, because as our name suggests, the Convention Artist Guild.
Yeah.
Um, there aren't really any conventions to go to and do things at, so it makes it really difficult because right now, because we don't have that kind of income stream, um, we've all had to start doing a lot of other stuff,
Yeah.
and so it makes it difficult to try to maintain the guild specifically for conventions when there aren't conventions.
Yeah.
So we're gonna probably pick things up towards the very end of the year or the beginning of next year, and hope that conventions will start to reopen when hopefully they have a vaccine,
Yeah.
and then we can actually start having conventions again. That would be really nice. So yeah, then I think we'll ramp up again.
Yeah. Or do the online thing as we have to, right?
Yeah, online is hard though. It really is because you can't. It's in person is really nice because you get to connect with people.
Yeah.
You get to actually talk with people. When people are doing the online thing, and it's great when they buy my art online. That's fantastic. They buy the Oracle deck, buy my prints on metal, etc. That's fantastic. But what I miss is like when someone buys a piece of my art in the art show and they come by my booth and say, "Hey, I won this in the auction," or "Oh my god, I was able to get this. This is really cool. Wow, dude, you did a great job on this. Thank you." And I was like, "Oh man, thanks so much for buying this." And you make a connection with the person who's made that really big purchase.
Yeah.
You make that connection. When they're just buying stuff online, I have to just kind of write it in a little note on an index card saying, "Oh my god, thank you so much for buying this." But it's not quite the same thing. I mean, it's handwritten, which is great, but it doesn't quite have
Sure.
that same being able to talk, in person, one on one sort of thing. So for me, online is really tough because I'm fairly old school in that regard. I like being able to f- talk with people face to face.
I
You
mean, I
know,
just run the process, right? I mean, right, your first time at TusCon, what, I hit your booth like 8 times, and every single time I spent vast quantities of time fondling this piece until finally Sunday afternoon, I'm like, I ought to just buy that damn
and I appreciate that. I
thing.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
But that's the thing though. We made a connection and that was
Yeah.
cool. We got to talk and got to hang out and be friends and stuff, and that was really cool. I like that just because of the fact that, um, if people really love my work, I also want them to be able to meet me and talk with me. And then they can say to their friends, when their friends look at the art on their wall, they can say to their friends, "Hey, I met the artist and I got a chance to hang out and talk with him. And, you know, he was kind of a jerk, but I like his art," or whatever.
That is
Hopefully
cool.
they say that I'm pretty cool, but if
One of
not, that's okay. They can at least say they met me. So
the quickest old friends you'll ever make.
yes, exactly.
Uh,
So yeah, I really miss that. I really miss making that connection. And I also, to be honest, I also miss walking around the dealer's room and meeting other people who also do art so that I can, say to them, "Oh my God, hey, I really like this. This is really cool." And to show my appreciation for other people's artistry. I miss that as well. So yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
And then of course meeting everyone who runs the conventions to be able to say thank you for running the con and thank you for doing all the hard work and stuff like that, because you guys work really really hard. You guys you guys are working for like a week before and then a week after and all of that, and it's just, I just get to show up for a weekend and be a rock star, and you know
Yeah,
and go home, and you guys have to clean up the mess. You guys have to do all of that. So we really, really appreciate you guys very, very much. So
I have said in introducing Toastmasters that it is one of the weirdest hobbies you can possibly
that's true.
have.
That's true. But
We do a lot of work
um
to mostly have other people have fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but we have our fun too. I should.
Well, I hope so, man. I
Because we
hope
get the
so.
keys, right? We
Yeah,
get the email addresses and can chat
that's
back
right.
and forth with you all year long.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And it's cool. I appreciate you guys doing that. And I'm sure that everyone else does too, whether you guys hear about it or not. But let me be the first amongst my peers, or not necessarily the first, but let me speak with the voice of all of my peers when we say thank you guys so much for running conventions. Without you guys, we would not be the rock stars that we are.
Yeah, and you're all very welcome. And the joy is we get to hang out with people like you and watch careers grow and
Or
watch things
fail and falter and burst into flames and die
watch
forever.
things get created. Oh, you forgot something on your current stuff list. And I want to make sure you don't get in trouble at home because Carolyn has a book.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. Yes, yes, she does. Carolyn Kay is my wife, and she has just finished the third book in the Galacel trilogy for the world of Ashalon. It's called Felanacion, and it wraps up the story very, very well. It is novel length as opposed to a novelette or novella, and it's really, really, really good. And I say that with only a little bit of bias, maybe 25% bias.
I've heard there's art in all these books.
Yeah, there is art, yes. But to be honest, my art really just kind of accents. It's a nice accent to the story. Um, it gives you guys kind of a visual reference of like what people look like. But for the most part, it's the story. The story is so very visual, and she really does a good job of just drawing you guys into the story. And it's great. The whole thing takes place in the hidden lands, and the hidden lands in the world of Ashalon that's where all the fae live, all the fairy creatures. So you've got your elves, you've got red caps, you've got brownies, you have it's just you treants, you've got it all, and it's all the world of the fae, and the bad guys are trying to destroy that world. And so it's up to our heroes to band together to stop what the bad guys are doing. And it's really, really, it's really well done. I think it's the best thing that she's written so far. And because her writing just keeps getting better and better. And I think you guys are really, really enjoy it. And if you haven't picked up the trilogy yet, please do. It's on sale on Amazon. And just look up Carolyn with a Y, Kay, and you will find her books. And trust me, you will want to get them because they are really, really good.
Save you there.
Yes, you did. You saved my marriage. Thank you.
Oh, let's see. All right, you brought up Faye, and I know you've been in this for a while. This is the thing I've been enjoying lately is that Western fiction, Western popular fiction's image of the Fae has been going back more to the mythic roots. The Disneyification of the Fae seems to finally be wearing off. You notice that? Are you enjoying it?
I am actually, because the Fae, to me anyway, are not just from a single culture. but the Fae also are, um, well, they're like everyone else. You know, you've got good, helpful, kind Fae, and you've got Fae that just would just rather be left alone. And you've got Fae that are, you know, that are pretty horrible. Um, and I think one of the things with what you've described is that the Fae have they have started authors have started to basically portray the Fae as, people with emotions and motives and, that kind of thing. And it's like it's not as simple as, well, just leave a bowl of milk out there. It's like, well, come on. So there's also, I think, been a push, um, for the Fae to have more emotion and to also have more desires than just, helping out the hero, as it were,
Yeah.
being the sidekick or something. They have wants and needs and desires and the whole works. So yeah,
And goals, and might not be terribly interested in what's going on Earth this week.
exactly,
They're the Fae
exactly.
Kingdom.
Exactly. Well, I wrote, many years ago when I was doing a lot more theater. I was doing the Renaissance Festival. I played Puck for a couple of years, and I wrote, um, I don't know, like a 3 or 4 page paper on the Fae and what motivates us and what we're about and everything like that. And one of the things that I wrote about was that the Fae are endlessly fascinated with humans because of the fact that humans' lives are really, really short compared to the Fae. And so the Fae love watching mortals run around and they accomplish so much in such a short amount of time that if you're Fae and you blink, you miss it. So they become endlessly fascinated by everything the Fae do, or everything that humans do, and everything that humans are involved with, and things that humans care about that the Fae are like, why would you care about this? Why do you care about that? And it's just, it's endlessly fascinating. Because for the Fae, I wrote that the Fae, if a joke is funny to them, that same joke will be just as funny 10 years from now, and then a month from now, and whatever. That same joke is endlessly funny because their lives don't really change very much. And so they watch humans to learn new things because there's always something new going on, you know? So it's a really interesting dichotomy in terms of how you think of yourself if you were Fae, you know?
It's cool.
Yeah.
So, given Fae lifespan, how long would too soon as a punchline last for them?
Always. Endlessly. Yeah. It's
Always plenty ago. Too soon?
yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Because it also lends itself to understanding. It's like, well, how does an immortal view the world?
Yeah.
Are they endlessly bored or are they endlessly fascinated?
Yeah.
You know, do they want to get involved in daily life or are they content with just being on the sidelines? So it's
How long can they continue to evolve?
right.
I mean, it's comedy, so let's just say it's a plot line, but it's what we do in shadows. That's one of their primary sources of humor, right? Is these vampires just kind of stopped evolving now because you know
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it makes it interesting too. Like when you look at like Twilight, for example, and you've got vampires that are going to high school, and you're just like, you're like 200 years old. I mean, where is the fascination here for you?
Yeah.
And the fact that he was, wanting to date a high schooler, and you're like, you're 200 years old, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
Don't ever bring
So
that up around an actual fan of the series. I almost got
yeah,
clubbed for that one. But yeah, that's fun to me. It's like, yeah, he's 200 years old. Why are you hitting on high school chicks? That's,
yeah,
that was
that's
creepy and wrong for me by the time I hit 30. Yeah,
yeah, and
230,
that's
way past the line.
yeah, exactly. Because at that point, then it's like, wouldn't you find older women more fascinating just because of the fact that they've had life experience which may have been different than yours, so you can learn more, you can have intelligent conversations, and etc. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
And then also too, does if you're immortal, does the idea of beauty evolve?
yeah,
you know do you stop looking at surface beauty and begin to look for inner beauty a lot more? Is that more attractive to you as you have gone through the millenniums?
yeah.
So
Hey,
I don't
certainly has for me. It's,
know.
it's just part of growing up. Although there's also the thing too, right? Because we age, so you know, the Fae or the vampire don't age, so maybe they're still okay with surface beauty because they're still just as hot as they were when at
Hopefully.
whatever point, right?
Hopefully, if someone wanted to turn me into a vampire, I'd say, come back in 6 months, let me hit the gym really
Yeah,
hard,
yeah,
and then turn me into a vampire.
yeah,
If I have to have a particular physical state,
yeah.
I want to make sure that I lay off the carbs, hit the gym really hard.
Cool. All right. All right. Well, we've been at this a while. You got any last thoughts? What do you want to throw at us?
Well, I just want to say that I appreciate you, Joe. I appreciate Tuscon. Um, I haven't been doing Tuscon for forever and ever. So my participation has been fairly recent, just in the last few years. But you guys have made me feel at home, made Carolyn and I feel like family, and we really very, very much appreciate all of you guys. So thank you guys so much for making us feel really amazing and awesome. And we hope that we can continue to come to your convention year after year after year.
All right. Well, I will accept those thanks and send them back. I know I can speak for most of Concom and hopefully many of the guests when I say you came to our convention and it was like you'd been there for years. And that's
Right
why I
on.
call you a new old friend, because really you just fit right in like you've been going as long as I have.
Very cool. Well,
We don't want,
thank you.
we don't want to mention how long that's been.
Well, I definitely appreciate the compliment, man. So thank you guys so much, and thanks for doing the interview too. This has been fun. It's one of the best interviews in that it's more like a conversation than anything else. So
All right,
I
cool.
appreciate that.
Thank you. All right, we'll push off the record. Bye, everybody in Tuscan land. Stay healthy. We'll see you
Bye,
next
guys.
year.
Yeah, stay safe and stay healthy and stay cool.